This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
As one of the oldest industrial groups in India, the Birlas have been involved in corporate social responsibility long before it became fashionable, long before people talked about it. At that point, they built schools and institutes of technology and temples, and their only real competition in this area was the mighty Tata Group. In today's episode, we travel with Mrs. Rajshree Birla to one of the CSR projects in Gujarat, to see for ourselves what the Birlas have been doing. You were 10 years old when you got engaged?
Yes.
Why so young?
I think that was the custom in those days, and the parents used to do arranged marriages.
But you heard about the Birla schools and the Birla temples?
Yes, that I have heard.
Huh? And which was the first one that you saw yourself?
The school was Modern High School, and even I used to go there for my lessons when I used to be in Calcutta during the holidays.
Is that the first school that the Birlas built, or was there something else before that?
No, I think in Pilani they had started bits came a little later on, but they had started the school long back. Maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe about somewhere in 1950s.
They come from Pilani?
Yes, they come from Pilani.
And in the 50s, there was real poverty in India. I mean, there still is, but in the 50s it was really, really bad. Do you know anything about why they started it, why they went for education and not something else?
I think they must have thought that education is the most vital thing to start with, and once you're educated, then you can be aware of all what's happening and how this can be taken further.
And who was the moving force behind it? Was it your grandfather-in-law or your grandmother-in-law? Who did it?
My grandfather-in-law, Mr. G.D. Birla. So he started from Pilani, and he came to Bombay, and then they shifted to Calcutta.
Yeah.
So first they themselves found how to go about things.
But were the women involved, or was it the men who took these decisions?
I think in the earlier days the men must have been involved, but later on in Calcutta, when the more schools were built, my mother-in-law, my aunt-in-law, the ladies also got involved.
And there are now many schools, aren't there? How many are we talking about?
Actually, I'm not sure, but like we run about 43 schools and teach about 40,000 children.
40,000 children. The Birla family has been famous as one of India's richest industrial families for nearly 100 years. But the first really famous Birla was Ghanshyam Das Birla, whose vision of the contribution he could make beyond business led him to active participation in the freedom movement. It was in Birla House in Delhi that Gandhiji lived, and it was tragically in Birla House that he was killed. After independence, G.D. Birla continued to do what he could by way of national service, and it was under him that the first educational institutions were built by the Birla family. What was the next thing they did?
I think the whole CSR concept was started by my grandfather-in-law, Mr. G.D. Birla, and when my husband took over, he made it more institutionalized. He put it into a formal form, and that was how it progressed.
Did you ever meet your grandfather-in-law?
Yes, of course. He died in 1983, and I got married in 1965. So
you met him for
yeah, I
sure.
met him, yes.
What was he like as a person?
He was a very simple, down-to-earth person.
Do you remember him as someone who was interested in a lot of things in the country, all that?
Yes, very much. He was very active during the independence days, and he was also he took part in the Bombay Plan, and he was the one who was one of the founder members of FICCI. So he was really interested in all the activities, what was happening in the country.